Hi, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here. I want to thank Amy and Nancy for hosting us here today. And it's such a thrill to share the screen with all these wonderful women. I'm going to hop to it and forgive me. I'm going to try to stick to my notes because if I don't, I'm afraid I'm going to ramble for too long. And to keep myself on track, I'm setting a timer. So that's how I function. Okay. Well, if you don't know me or know who I am, um, I'm I'm physically disabled, and I have to let you know this because virtually you just it's impossible to know. So I'm a little person. I stand at 3 feet 9 inches tall, and it's very important for me to be here with you today because I want to talk about the inequities of education for children with disabilities. There is a huge disparity in education equality for children with disabilities, and I want to share my personal experience with you guys. So, in the education system, there is a tremendous lack of focus on facilitating the growth and development of children with disabilities to help them achieve personal development and but most importantly, personal independence. Education targeting everyday aspects of life as an individual with a disability provides the best chance of success through independence. And as we all know, independence equates dignity. And that is something that is lacking in the guidance of children with disabilities in the school system. Now, to reflect on my personal experience, and granted, my school years were in the 1900s, but I'm here today because not much has changed to guide the success of students with disabilities. Now, had I been given the tools for independence by schools, I would have been spared a terrifying and impoverished transition into adulthood. Now, I'm not here speaking as a victim, and frankly, the anger I live with over the injustices that I have endured is the foundation of my resilience. Sometimes it's okay to be angry. It's a survival skill that has given me the strength to build a good life for myself. So I do have a very good life, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, but here's what contributed to my anger. I was not allowed access to an equal education simply because of my disability. I was the only little person in my family or any school I ever attended, and I was always made to feel like a burden instead of just being provided guidance and an education to develop my independence. A lack of equal access to education is where systemic forced poverty begins for individuals with disabilities. Now, much like Sonali's experience, uh, I come from a family of immigrants. In fact, I'm an immigrant myself. My family came to the U.S. From Mexico specifically so that us kids, my siblings and I, could get an education. So my parents had no resources, no formal education, no community support, and they still did everything they could to fight the LA public school system that insisted on placing me in special ed classes, having nothing to do with my intellectual abilities. Now, for the record, there would not have been anything wrong with being placed in a special ed class if indeed special ed students were actually being educated. Now, I cannot speak for today, but in the 1900s, when I was in school, special ed classes were nothing more than prisons for students with disabilities that were considered a burden and needed to be kept out of sight and needed to be kept segregated from the, I guess, general population. So, my parents at one point even went as far as having my IQ tested, which actually proved that I had a very high IQ. My score was so high that my dad asked me to never tell my siblings because it wouldn't be a humble thing to do. So, humility was big in my household. And this is actually the first time I've ever uttered a word about my IQ because I agree it's not humble. But I wanted to make a point because uh, what I'm angry about is the fact that it doesn't matter how high your IQ is if you're not given the tools to develop it. I had a terrible time in school. I was barely literate. I barely graduated high school, and I did not have the grades or the foundation to successfully complete college. Now, just a few quick examples of what my path in school was like. Um, I vividly remember in fourth grade, um, because I was the only little person at school in fourth grade, the school set up for a counselor to pull me out of class and have these like arts and crafts counseling sessions. And and I was pulled out of class for these counseling sessions during the pivotal mathematic lessons. So, because I was pulled out of class for these like therapy sessions that were never explained to me, I didn't even understand why I was doing arts and crafts with a therapist. I missed learning the most basic, division, word problems, long format, anything that had to do with math. I never learned because I missed all those lessons doing arts and crafts and not being told why I was doing arts and crafts. It was bizarre. So I miss pivotal mathematic knowledge. Jump forward to high school in 10th grade. I was in an English class and I never learned anything about uh, basic literature because the teacher in class pulled me aside and told me that I never had to do any of the assignments because people like me do not need the knowledge. I'm never going to use it. So she made me feel like I was a teacher's pet when actuality she was robbing me of an education. So I had to sit next to her and just literally stare at the wall while everybody was learning the classics and writing book reports. So this contributed to me being practically illiterate. And in 11th grade, that's usually in high school when you go speak to your guidance counselor about your next transition in life. And I went to my guidance counselor, and he told me that not to worry about college because higher education was not a place for people like me. So these are examples of how students with disabilities are not given access to the same education that everyone else has. And even though I was integrated into, I guess, all the quote unquote normal classes, I was still singled out. I was still basically muted, ignored, and I was not immersed in any of the education. I was just a body taking up space so that my parents wouldn't be upset um, that I wasn't integrated. So it was very frustrating for me. So, but flash forward today, I'm very proud to say that I serve on the board of directors for Southern California Resource Services for Independent Living. It's a nonprofit organization created to be run by and for people with disabilities, offering support, advocacy, and information on empowerment in the attainment of independence from a peer viewpoint. This organization, SCRSIL, basically is picking up the slack for the public school system when it comes to providing transitional tools for students with disabilities graduating from high school into adulthood because society and the school system usually leave us out to dry. And that's why I had a very difficult, very impoverished early adulthood in my life. And so I just wanted to speak on that because this is a topic that about education equality that is really never addressed. I never hear anybody talk about this. And this is the population of students that are consistently left behind, even to this day. So, thank you for tolerating my bit of anger, and thanks for having me.